That was good. I just made up my own rules, Dave. Speaking of clapping, by the way, would you join me in thanking our friends from St. Thomas and Visitation? This is the first time ever that we've had something like this. Coach, you're all right, too. It was, yeah, I know, they get all the credit. I also want to thank my opponent for his willingness. When Don and I had lunch together a couple months ago, we had a great lunch. We talked about family, we talked about a variety of things.
And I didn't pay. And I didn't pay.
And Don did not pay. I told you I don't take lunch from anybody. But we had a nice conversation. We said there ought to be debates. And we didn't know how that was going to happen. And this is how it happens. And we appreciate you guys coming. And I thought it was a good back and forth. I also want to thank Don. He did something that most people wouldn't. I invited him to show up for Inver Grove Heights Days. He and Connie came and pushed grocery carts with us in the Inver Grove Heights Days parade and collect food for neighbors, which is our local food shelf. People don't do that in politics. And yet Don and Connie and oh my goodness, I'm going to remember before I get done here. But Sally, right? Did I get it? Sally English came as well. They wore their Donnelly shirts, and we collected about 2,000 pounds of food and school supplies and household stuff. You really can work together. And at the end of the day, we're Minnesotans. It's the partisan stuff you can check at the door sometimes, and it's amazing what you can do when you work together. I've been going door to door now for the last few months. I've visited with people like Don. I've heard from students here in the room. I've got kind of my top 10 list so far in terms of priorities for the 2015 session. I apologize for reading, but I wrote them down. Number one was balance the state budget without shifts or gimmicks or borrowing and without any new taxes. Most of the new tax increase that we passed 2 years ago went to pay back a loan that was taken from our schools, a $2.8 billion loan that was used to balance the last state budget. Number two was fairer funding for suburban schools. We get short shrift in the burbs just because of where we live and because we haven't had adequate representation over there, just in terms of numbers. Now we do. Whether it's Don or me, we got to fight for fairer funding for our schools in the suburbs. Number three is property tax relief. 12% reductions in our area the last 2 years, but prior to that we've seen property taxes going up and up and up, and we can bring them down. Number four is continue our efforts to prevent scams that target Minnesota seniors. We are the #1 target in the United States for scammers because we don't hang up the phone. We're the nicest people in the world, and we get scammed. Number five is continuation of the college tuition freeze. Number six is fix deteriorating roads and bridges. That's a huge, huge issue. It's going to be a key priority, maybe the #1 priority for the 2015 session. 7 is repeal obsolete laws that no longer make sense. Nobody repealed more laws last session than I did, but we've still got more work to do to streamline things. That's number 8 as well. Number 9 is legislation that honors Officer Scott Patrick. I've heard from a lot of folks here in Mendota Heights about his passing. We should do that, Don. Regardless of who wins in November, we've got to do that. And number 10 is continue to work in bipartisan fashion. I hear that again and again and again. It's like we've seen the gridlock in DC. We expect better, and we ought to get better here in Minnesota. With that, thank you all very much. Thank you, Don. Thank you, St. Thomas, for hosting this and Visitation. We appreciate it.